Hi, everyone. Welcome to the University of Michigan School of Social Work and our Introduction to Field Education webinar. I'm glad to have you all join us today. We'll be talking for the next hour or so about field education. My name is Dan Fischer, and I'm a clinical assistant professor and assistant dean and director of field education at the School of Social Work. Later today, you'll also be talking with two of my colleagues, Stacy Peterson, who is one of our field faculty, and Beth Sherman, who is one of our clinical faculty instructors. We'll be talking to you about School of Social Work and the School of Social Work Specialization and Certificate Information. I'd also like to make a few other introductions for people that are helping us today, and we'll be answering chats in the chat room. We have a few folks that are here. Sue Crabb is one of our field faculty staff that's on the chat room line. Bill Vanderwill is also answering chats, as well as Michelle Woods from our Director of Student and Career Services. And I believe Rachel Naskow and Nutisha Robinson and Sharice Carrington may also be joining us at some point during the conversation tonight. Yes, I did. We're trying to figure out something with the muting. I hope everyone can hear me. Okay. Sorry about that. I think we're always trying to figure out technology as best we possibly can. Let's talk about field and what field education is all about. Your field placement, or field as we often refer to it, is the hands-on training portion of the MSW program. Field is the opportunity for you to take what you learn in the classroom and apply these concepts and skills in a real-world learning environment. Now field are courses. So for these courses, you'll be placed in a field site based on your practice method, area, and your learning goals. Over the course of your time in the program, what's important for you to understand is that if you're an advanced standing student, you'll spend a minimum of 684 hours in field. If you're a 16-month or 20-month student, you'll spend 912 hours in field over the course of the program. That's a lot of time, so we want you to make sure that you're mindful of this time commitment as you plan your schedule and think about classes and work life and other activities you have going on during the time you'll be in the program. It's also important to know that field placement sites are in a variety of settings, primarily located within southeastern Michigan. The types of sites include things such as hospitals, sites on higher education, so we have quite a few field placements around our campus setting, in community and social service organizations, schools, and many others. That's just to name a few. So why is field education so important? I always like to say that social work is a profession where the subject matter is uniquely human, infinitely complex, and impacted by pretty much anything that makes life interesting. Interpersonal relationships, family dynamics, culture, community systems, and our society in general. In choosing to become a social worker, you are committing yourself to the profession's core values of service, social justice, dignity and worth of the person, the importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. What you should also understand is this also involves a commitment to lifelong learning and frequent self-reflection. All of your experiences in field, from practicing specific social work skills and establishing collaborative working relationships, to developing your critical thinking abilities and your professional identity, prepare you in some way for your first master's level social work job. In both the classroom and the field, you are beginning to develop your professional brand and how others will view you as a social worker. So take this seriously from the moment you enter our domain. I think that professional brand is something that a lot of students don't think about as they start the profession, but from classes to your interactions with your colleagues, to interactions in fun events, to the work that you do in field placement, all begin to set the stage for how people view you as a social work professional. So it's important to know that field is a class, and there will be several people involved in teaching this class over the course of the time that you're in the program. First is your University of Michigan School of Social Work field faculty. This person is the faculty instructor for all of your field courses and works in the School of Social Work Office of Field Instruction. This individual will act as a liaison between the school and the field site and will be there to guide you every step of the way throughout your field experience. They'll monitor your learning and they'll also be the ones that will assign the grades for all of your field courses. Your field faculty is dedicated to helping you develop the fundamental skills and competencies of the social work profession. So please don't hesitate to reach out to them and tap into their knowledge and expertise often. The second person that you'll be dealing with is your field instructor. This person is typically, but not always, an employee at the field site. They will supervise your learning while you're at the field site, and your field instructor will also be typically a licensed MSW who is volunteering their time to provide you regular supervision and will work with you and your School of Social Work field faculty to establish learning goals and assignments and activities during each semester that you're in field. Your field faculty and your field instructor will meet with you together at least one time each term to review your learning progress. We call this a site visit, but this sometimes also takes place over Skype or BlueJeans, or even sometimes during phone calls. But most often, this is a face-to-face site visit meeting that you'll be having. In addition, your field instructor will also complete an end-of-term evaluation of your learning and performance that will be submitted to the field faculty and serve as the basis for your final field grade for that term. Remember, ultimately, it is the field faculty who make the final determination of the grade that you receive. Finally, depending on the field site that you're in, you may also be assigned a task supervisor who provides day-to-day oversight of your learning. Typically, the task supervisor is not a licensed social worker and may even be someone from another professional discipline, but is very familiar with the work at the field site. This person will have regular contact both with your field instructor and the field faculty to help evaluate your learning and to think about learning goals and responsibilities. So one of the questions that we hear a lot is where will my field placement be? Field placement locations are mostly near our university in southeastern Michigan and in northern Ohio. Typically this includes the Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area or Washtenaw County, Detroit, Dearborn, Flint, Lansing, and as I mentioned, even into northern Ohio. For students not familiar with Michigan, most of these places on average are a 30 to 60 minute commute from our School of Social Work in Ann Arbor, so be prepared for that. We also offer national and international field placement options that occur during the spring-summer term, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later in today's presentation. One of the questions that we get, if you think about that 30 to 60 minute distance from our school, is around transportation and how I will get there. It's important to know that transportation to field is the responsibility of the student, but we recognize that this can be a challenge. If you have access to a car or other personal transportation, you should expect to use it. We understand that some of you may not drive, or you just don't have access to a car, and that's okay. But please keep in mind, and you should know, that this will impact your potential choices for field placements. So for example, if you're interested in field placements in Detroit, you'll need to have a way to get there. So be sure to indicate if you do or don't have a car on your field application, so we can be aware of this and help you consider the appropriate field placement options that fit for you. As I mentioned, many of our placements are a good distance from Ann Arbor, and to be frank, one of the things to keep in mind if you're not from Michigan, public transportation in Michigan is very limited. If you travel outside of a 30-mile radius from the School of Social Work to get to field, our school has found the resources to be able to offer a $300 guest stipend each term for students that are outside of that 30-mile radius. Keep in mind, this is not driving distance, but a radius from the School of Social Work. So that gets confusing for students, but the reason that we did it was really to maximize the number of students that we could provide stipends to. We understand this amount will not fully cover your travel and gas expenses, but it's an amount that allows us to maximize the number of travel stipends we can offer to students. Unfortunately, for those of you in sites under 30 miles, under a 30-mile radius, there is no stipend. Again, we know this is less than ideal, but we want you to be prepared for this as you enter the program. So one of the big questions I think that you all are having, or you should be having, is what will I do in field? For field, you'll be placed in a field site based on your practice method and area and your learning goals. Keep in mind that even though we have distinctions between micro and macro practice in your classes, pure micro and macro field placements are typically not the norm. As in most field settings, you're actually going to get exposure to both. And in most of the jobs that you'll have going forward in your career, you'll need to be familiar with both micro and macro level work. We anticipate that during your field experience, you'll learn a variety of social work skills that will be translatable to many aspects of the social work profession. Skills in engagement, assessment, intervention, and evaluation, and understanding how policy, research, and issues related to social justice impact the services we provide to the clients and communities you will be serving are just to name a few. In addition, you'll learn other critical elements important for your professional identity development that we'll discuss in the next few slides. What's important to keep in mind is that everything you learn and experience in field is an opportunity for learning and growth. So now that you're starting to get the picture of what field placement might look like, let me frame the importance of field in a different way. If you were learning how to play tennis and you were trying to learn how to play tennis, I think one of the ways you might go about it is you might read some books on tennis instruction. You might learn the rules of the game. You might learn a little bit about what the equipment is that you would be using. You might also watch some videos about tennis, or you might even go to a tennis match and watch the tennis match. You may practice swinging the racket in your living room, or maybe even play tennis on the Wii. In many ways, this only prepares you for playing in a real tennis match. Ultimately, it's the experience of getting out on the court against an actual opponent that allows you to really learn about the challenges of the game. And this experience of being on the court is really what field is about. Field allows you to practice and apply the classroom theories and concepts in a real-world setting, essentially the tennis court. And it also allows you to take real-world experiences and transfer them to the classroom. So in a nutshell, field experiences should be influenced by your classroom learning, and your classroom learning should also be influenced by your field experiences. They really do go together, and you need to keep this in mind as you're kind of going through the program and experiencing both class and field work. In field, you'll practice skills and behaviors that will help you become a competent beginning level social worker. The Council on Social Work Education, which is our accrediting body, has identified the professional competencies you must practice and develop before graduating from our program. You'll learn more about these core competencies once you begin the program, and all of our field placements will give you an opportunity to practice and develop these core skills. Field is also a place where you will need to learn and practice how to navigate ethical concerns that commonly arise in all settings where social workers find themselves. And you'll need to do this according to the National Association of Social Work Code of Ethics. You'll learn more about our professional code of ethics, and as MSW students, you'll need to become very familiar with the code throughout the program. However, I will say that if you're interested in some summertime reading material, I might suggest you spend some time with the NASW Code of Ethics. Just a suggestion, but not a bad idea. So as you enter your field placement, it's important to remember that entering field means that you are entering a new and unfamiliar community, learning the culture, norms, purpose, and rules of this new community, as well as your own cultural humility will be part of your early learning and requires time, attention, and intention around learning. Becoming a professional social worker is a gradual process. It involves a commitment to lifelong learning and self-reflection, so you'll be doing this throughout your social work career. Your field sites understand that you are there to learn. You are not expected to come in with any specific social work skills or knowledge, as this is what you'll be learning in the program. Our School of Social Work is fully committed to supporting and educating students as they prepare to enter the social work profession. However, given the ethical responsibilities of our social work of professional social work practice to promote and protect the well-being of the clients and communities we serve, the School of Social Work, our School of Social Work, has developed technical standards for students that not only apply and focus on academic performance, but also emphasize the abilities and attributes essential for our profession. You were all asked at admission to review and acknowledge that you were able to satisfy these technical standards with or without reasonable accommodations. If you don't remember whether you clicked a box or whether you looked at these, I would encourage you to go back and take a look. These standards apply in the classroom, in field placements, in our school, in our university, and in the broader community and societal context. So please be familiar with them. As you begin to start field, I have 5 pieces of advice that I'd like you to consider and remember that will help you make field a successful learning experience. First, you need to own your learning and manage your expectations. As you participate in field, I would encourage you to embrace what you are learning, even though it will likely be different than what you expect. And in fact, we're sure that it will be different than what you expect. To be successful, you will need to be open-minded, adaptable, flexible, patient, and willing to seek out opportunities for your growth and development. Be active and curious in your learning. The more you put into your field experience, even if it is different from what you expected, the more you're going to get out of it. 2, it's important for you to learn to function and deal with discomfort and anxiety. Dealing with difficult situations and circumstances is the nature of our profession. It's important for you to be aware that you're going to encounter situations where you're going to experience a range of emotions, including frustration and anxiety. Please know that this is normal and expected. A critical aspect of becoming a social worker is developing the skills and ability to function effectively in your social work role, even when you are triggered and your emotions are high. You need to learn how to be able to do this. Learning how to lean into this discomfort, asking for help from others when needed, and self-reflection are essential skills that you must develop and will use throughout your social work career. This will certainly come up in field. 3, I think it's important to take risks and be willing to make mistakes. A phrase I like to use is perfect is the enemy of the possible. Your best learning will occur if you are willing to take some risks and understand that you're going to make mistakes. You'll never be perfect, and expecting this from yourself and others will only create unnecessary frustration and can actually lead to burnout. Social work is a field of gray where every situation is unique. Your professors and field instructors and field faculty won't be able to provide you a script for you to follow, but rather you'll need to be able to use critical thinking in the moment and integrate learning and previous experiences to be optimally effective in your social work role. Please understand this does take time. So even if you're uncertain of exactly what to do, we encourage you not to hang back, but rather take risks and say yes to opportunities and new challenges. My fourth piece of advice really is to be patient with all that you have to learn. To be frank, there's no way for us to teach you everything there is to know about social work during the 12 or 16 months you'll be in the program. Our hope is that when you graduate, you'll be an excellent beginning social worker. After graduation, you'll need 2 years of additional supervised experience in order to become a fully licensed social worker and practice independently. Remember, this is a lifelong learning profession. Everything you do every day for the rest of your career will be something that will inform the thing you do next. Please understand, it's expected that in field, learning often progresses over time from exposure to immersion to supervised independence, but the pace of this is different for each and every student and in each and every field placement. So be mindful of not comparing your experience with what your colleagues might be doing. Every situation is a little bit different and you need to be prepared for that. We encourage you to be patient with this process. We encourage you to have open dialogue with your field instruction team to understand the pace and approaches that best fit your learning and the needs of the field site and the clients and communities you are serving. Finally, and this is an important one, I believe, is that you need to want, seek, and use feedback. I suspect all of you would say that you'd want our faculty and your field instructors to give you feedback if they have concerns about how you're doing. Yet, we know that when we receive this type of feedback, it doesn't always feel good. But please don't shy away from it. In fact, you should ask for feedback often. Be thankful when you get it, and be always willing to self-reflect and use this feedback to enhance your learning and the development of social work skills. Explore early in your relationship with your field instructor and your field faculty how you best receive feedback. I would also encourage you to discuss with them the best way for you to be able to provide feedback to them, especially if you have concerns. Avoiding those conversations or using what I refer to as the hint and hope method is not particularly productive and not really what's expected of a social work professional. So how is field different in a job? I think that's a question that we get a lot, and in many ways, field will feel like a job. You will need to be on time. You'll need to dress and act appropriately to the setting. You'll need to communicate responsibly and respectfully with the people at your field site, and you'll need to learn to deal with the complicated interpersonal dynamics within a work environment. Social work, like other professional schools, medicine, nursing, pharmacy, the School of Education, etc., believes that it's critical for you to have the opportunity to learn and practice your skills in real-world environments that you will eventually work in. As a licensed profession, field allows you as a student to practice as an MSW before you receive the degree in order to gain the skills and experience you'll need to practice once you've completed the program. Your educational agreement, which you'll learn more about when you begin field and start in our program, is the key learning tool and is designed to guide your field experience. I always think of MSW training as being similar to medical school, where you learn from both the classroom and from clinical and field experiences. Once you graduate, you'll be a limited licensed social worker, as I mentioned, that will require 2 years or 4,000 hours of supervised experience before you become a fully licensed social work professional. This LLMSW period, in my opinion, is very similar to medical residencies that doctors complete after they complete medical school. So understand the skills and experience that you need to fully become a full-fledged social work, fully licensed professional takes roughly 5,000 hours in field, about 1,000 while you're in the program, and another 4,000 hours after you graduate. It's important to know that although you cannot get paid for field, as it's considered an educational experience in a class and not a job, some agencies do provide stipends, but most do not. If an agency does offer a stipend, it will be indicated in the agency information when you apply. So please be mindful of this if you're looking for a potential opportunity to get a stipend to go along with your field work. So when do you apply? So we have a couple of very important dates coming up. If you are an advanced standing and 20-month student, you'll actually be applying for field this May. On May 16th is the actual date. And for the field term that starts in the fall of 2019. If you're a 16-month student in general, you'll be applying for field in October after you begin the program, and we'll be talking to you more about that when you start in the program in September. There's a tool on top of the incoming field student page on our website that prompts you to select your admit term and curriculum schedule, and it generates your field application due date, interview period, and the week you'll start field. Please make sure you look at this. The field application is not first come, first serve, and in fact, it's advantageous for you to wait until the week it is due to review the available placements and complete your online field application. Our agencies are continuously letting us know whether they'll have an opening or not, so the list of available placements gets more and more accurate as we approach the actual field application deadline date. So I would encourage you to look at it now, but not necessarily make your selections, and please make sure you look at it before May 16th. These are the standard dates that I have listed on the slide. but there are some reasons why you would apply for field at different times than what's listed here, and we'll talk about those in a few moments. So here are some of the reasons why you would apply for field at a different time. There are really three main reasons that you would apply it at the non-standard time. Would be because, one, you're interested in a national field placement, you're interested in a global field placement experience, or you want to apply for a field placement that for various reasons requires students to complete a different schedule. These get a little tricky, but I'm going to go over it for a few minutes here because we have some students who miss their opportunity to do national or global placements because they didn't realize they needed to adjust their field schedules as they enter the program. On the incoming student field page, right under the tool that allows you to see your field deadlines, there's a link for field placement options with alternative schedules and deadlines. You can see the full list there, which includes when and how to apply for each. I'll give you a few examples. All national and global field placements take place in the spring-summer term. So in your cases, they would take place in the spring-summer term of 2020. Therefore, if you're a 16-month student interested in doing a national field placement in the spring-summer term of 2020, you actually would need to apply and start your field placement a term early. So instead of applying in October for field to start in the winter of 2020, you would actually apply this May with the advanced standing and 20-month cohort to start field in the fall of 2019. This will allow you to spend 2 terms in a local field placement, then your spring-summer 2020 term at your national field site. This is similar to those of you with a global field placement interest. If you're on the 16-month curriculum schedule, you'll have to apply and start a term earlier. If you're interested in global or national field placements and you're a 20-month student, or you switch to the 16-month curriculum, if you're interested in a national or global field placement and you're a 20-month student, you must switch to the 16-month curriculum, then apply for field in May of 2019. This is because 20-month students can't register for credits over the spring-summer term, and you'll need to be enrolled in field if you're completing a national or global field placement. So kind of keep that in mind. We have these placements available to you, but there are some things that you need to be aware of if you want to pursue that, and the sooner you know, the better. One of the things that we'll be able to help you with is we have welcome phone calls that we'll be doing with you or offering to you after our session today, and our field faculty can offer information if you're interested in national or global field placements. If you're interested in a global independent study, that's different than a field placement experience. This is similar to a global field placement, but is usually shorter in duration. And if you're interested in this, you can reach out to our Office of Global Activities directly at ssw.oga@umich.edu, and they'll help you think about whether or not you'll need to adjust your field schedule. The other category of field placements that would cause you to apply early for field at a different time are some field placements that we do have with alternative schedules. These are very few, but a few examples are our placements at the University Center for the Child and the Family or the University of Michigan Psychological Clinic. One of the things that we're working on with them, though, is to come back to a regular field schedule. So if you're interested in either one of those field placements, please reach out to us so we can have a conversation with you about that. If you have any questions or need clarifications about your field placement application due date, please make sure that you contact our office. No question is a bad one, and we'd much rather have you contact us than to miss a deadline that would be important to your learning. Okay, so now we'll get down to brass tacks about how do I apply. So let's talk about how to apply. First, we have a great new website that walks you through the field placement application process. I will say, even though the website is new, sometimes it can still be tough to navigate, and it's probably got more verbiage in there than I wish it did, but it's certainly an improvement over on what we've had before. It starts on the incoming field student webpage with the deadline selection tool, then lists 4 main steps that you need to do as you begin to think about applying for field. Preparing to apply, composing and submitting your field application, interviewing, in preparing to start your field placement. Each step links to a page with information and details about that particular step. This site is a great resource on this process, but don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions. So let's focus on the first few steps. So how to prepare to apply for field. As you begin to think about applying for field, I would encourage you to reflect on these 4 areas listed on the slide. Remember, self-reflection is something that as a social worker you will use throughout your career, so it's good to get started now. First of all, I think you want to reflect back on your learning goals and your current skills. Be reasonable with yourself. Don't make an assumption that you have no skills when you probably do, but also don't assume that you are over-prepared when you still may have a lot to learn. I also would say, think about how you best receive feedback and the kind of field instructor you'd like to have. Looking for the qualities of the field instructor and the relationship you have with this person will be integral and critical in your overall learning. I think it's important for you to reflect on the potential first job you'd like to get after graduation and what basic skills you'll need for that job to be qualified. That's oftentimes something that's really good for you to list in your goal statement and to think about as you go into interviews with your field placement sites. It's also important for you to remember that whatever you expect, just know it will likely be different. One of the things that I had a conversation with a group of our students yesterday that have been in field now for a semester was to ask them what they might say to themselves if they were just beginning field again. And I heard 2 things from them. One was to accept and respect the process and understand that the process takes time, but also to recognize that whatever they expected, to know that it would be different. So I'm sharing that with you because I want you to have that insight as you begin field. Whatever expectations you have, just know that you're going to need to be adaptable, flexible, and it will be likely different than you expect. What you should remember is that every field placement is a learning experience. It's helpful for us to know your interest and what you would like to be able to do, but field placements are really meant to give you a breadth of experience, both micro and macro. These foundational transferable skills will serve as a launching point as you navigate not only your educational journey, but will be something you'll rely on throughout your social work career. So composing and submitting your field application, which is step 2 in this process. There are 2 items you will upload with your field placement application online, your goal statement and your resume. Your goal statement is meant to give the field site an idea of what you're interested in and your current skill level. They'll review what skills you'd like to learn, which will help them know if they're the right match for you as a site. The field site will also use this as a writing sample, so please be mindful of that as you complete this, and check for spelling errors and any grammatical issues that you may have, because they will be watching that and looking at that. If your first choice for a field placement doesn't work out for any reason, maybe they've declined to interview you, and maybe you were interviewed but decide it's not the right option for you, then your materials will be sent to the next choice for review. In this way, your learning statement and goals are very important and very different from a cover letter. You want to make your goal statement general, an overview of your interests and skills, and not address it or customize it to the certain field placement that you picked as your first option, as you may be looking at other options as well. Your resume is as any other resume, but should also emphasize any social work skills and experiences that you have. Our Office of Career Services, and Michelle Woods is on the chat line with us today, is a great resource to help you with this if you have questions. I'll talk more about the interview and decision-making process and how that works in a few minutes. So as you go into the step and review the available field placements and submit your field application, let's talk a little bit about how to do that. The next steps essentially then would be to go online and review the available field placements and options that are available for your application. I want to remind you that as an incoming field student, website it walks you through the entire process with a lot of important detail. So please review it carefully before submitting your field application. Every year we have students that miss things that they should have known that was available to them. So make sure you're looking closely at the website. There are a few things though I do want to go over with you here. Make sure that when you're searching for and selecting available field placements, that you're picking options that match your method, concentration, curriculum schedule, and special scholarships if that applies to you. So if you're a child welfare scholar or if you're a geriatric scholar, you want to make sure that you consider that in the placements that you select. The first page is a search tool, which helps you filter by the options that are right for you. You can also search by topic area, site attributes, or the skills that you're wanting to learn. Once you've searched for results, you can click on each listing and review the program description. Each of our programs will have a description that will describe the kinds of things that you'll be doing in field and the work of the agency. There will also be an agency description and a link to each agency's website, which will help you learn more about them overall. Remember, this step is best done about a week before the deadline so that the listings you see are the most current and most accurate. After you view the choices, you will select 6. Then the next page will ask you to rank them. So again, you'll rank those 6 from most preferred to least preferred as you go through the process. The remainder of the field placement application will ask you for information about yourself, and then we'll ask you to upload your goal statement and your resume. So one of the questions that we get is, what if I'm interested in a field placement that's not on the list? If you're interested in a field placement that's not listed, there can be a lot of reasons for that. It could be that we work with them, but they're not accepting new field students in the term that you're entering field. Or it might be that they don't accept students with your method, concentration, or curriculum schedule. It could be that we reached out to them before and they're not currently able to take MSW students. Or it could be that we've had no contact with them yet and we could potentially open them as a new field placement site. So there are a lot of possibilities. If you're interested in an agency that is not listed, reach out to our office so we can investigate. If it's an agency that we've never had contact with before, a lot of times your leads can help us be able to develop new places. However, it's important to know that you should not reach out to the agencies directly, as this goes for whether the agency shows up on the list or whether it doesn't. Our field placement agencies are often accepting students on top of their normal work duties and caseloads. If students reach out to agencies directly with inquiries or to express interest, the agency would then have to put extra resources into managing these inquiries, which can quickly become time-consuming. We've heard this from agencies and we've tried to be respectful of their feedback to us. As a way to respect the agency's valuable time and the limited resources, we manage all student interest through our office. If we do already work with an agency and you're interested in, contacting our office will put you in contact with the field faculty in charge of that agency, so you can discuss whether or not there are openings for you. So all of our field faculty are assigned to specific agencies that they work with on a regular basis, so they'll know how to navigate these circumstances. If you do not already work with an agency, or if we don't already work with an agency, we'll explore the possibility of opening for you and reach out to the agency to see if they have interest in hosting a student. Even if you've gotten a basic inquiry that they might be interested, know that sometimes they'll tell that to you, but then they don't respond to us when they find out what that might entail. If you have questions about whether an agency works with us currently or not, please reach out to our office as soon as possible. If we move forward with opening a new field site, please know that this process can take several months, so we need to have lead time to be able to make that happen. So what happens after you apply? So once you've submitted your field application, the system will send you a confirmation email that you've received it. If you don't get this, please make sure you reach out to us. When we receive your application, it gets put in a queue of the field faculty that owns or is in charge of the field choice or the first choice of your field site. The field faculty will review your materials and make sure that it seems like your first choice is indeed a good fit. So we'll look at what you've written in your goal statement and look at your first choice and what you're interested in learning to make sure that it's a match. For instance, sometimes we'll have someone submit a goal statement that talks about working one-on-one with children in a school setting, but then their choices are all working with adults in a medical setting. In this case, the field faculty would reach out to you and offer a consultation. You'd either rewrite your goal statement or submit new choices. We just want to make sure that there's a match between the two. There are 7 field faculty in our office, as I mentioned earlier, with more than 100 years of combined social work experience. We work as a team, and so you may work with more than one of us in the field placement process. We are all dedicated to helping you find a field placement that best fits your learning goals, and we're fully committed to preparing you to join the social work profession. Once the field faculty has reviewed your materials and found that they're ready to go, they will forward your goal statement and resume to the field instructor at the field site, and they'll let you know that they've done this. The field instructor will review your materials and determine an interview if it's appropriate. Please know that every student gets placed at a pre-approved yet constantly evolving field sites. Our office places 100 or more students simultaneously each semester. The field site determines the timing of the interview based off their workload and calendar availability. Sometimes you'll submit your materials and get placed within a couple weeks. Other times it may take much longer. If you feel like the wait has been too long, please feel free to reach out to us at any point if you have questions. One of the things that I will say for a lot of the students that are applying in May, keep in mind you don't begin your field experience until September. So even though you want to find out as quickly as you can, for a lot of the agencies, for them as they have a busy summer kind of going on, they don't have the pressure to interview as quickly. We work with them to try to get in contact with you as quickly as possible, but just please know this varies from agency to agency. Don't panic if one of your friends has gotten a field placement site and you haven't even been called back yet. That's a pretty common experience. So let's talk a little bit about the interview. If an agency decides to interview you, the field faculty will put you in contact with that agency to set up a time for the interview. Similar to our policy on not contacting agencies directly with inquiries, we also have an interview process that respects the time commitment of the field instructors and the resources at the field site. As I mentioned earlier, we have hundreds of students that are going through this process simultaneously. If we allowed students to interview multiple places before making any decisions, field sites would potentially be facilitating and completing a high volume of interviews, which is an unreasonable burden for the site. Also, this could disadvantage you as a student if the field site continued to take interview requests from other students after offering you a spot. If they found someone more desirable, it would be unfair of them to give your spot away to someone else after they've already offered it to you. So instead, you'll interview one place at a time. The interview is meant for you to evaluate them as much as they're evaluating you, so keep this in mind. If both parties decide it's a good fit, then you can accept the placement. If either you don't think it's a good fit, if either of you don't think it's a good fit, you'll move on to another interview at your next available choice. Many students applying in May to start field in the fall wonder if they have to do an in-person interview in Ann Arbor if they're not local, and the answer is no. The vast majority of agencies are happy to do phone or virtual interviews instead. There are a few agencies that require in-person interviews because they either do a speed dating or group interview style interview session, but that's rare. Just make sure that you communicate early and often about your interview format needs. Excuse me. If you're an international student looking to set up a virtual interview, you can contact our office and we'll use an application called Blue Jeans to create a meeting that makes sense within the different time zones. So please reach out and we can help you with this. The incoming field student website, again, is a great resource for you to better understand the interview process and prepare for your interview. It has tips for in-person, phone, and virtual interviews and sample interview questions that you can take a look at. both what you could ask them and what they may ask you, tips for professional dress, and links for campus-wide resources that may be helpful. So one of the questions that we get is what happens if I don't get an interview or I'm not accepted after I interview? First of all, don't panic. Reach out to our field faculty, as they may have feedback from the field site that can help you going forward. There may be nothing for you to do differently, but rather the field site simply had more applicants than spots available and will simply move you on to the next opportunity. However, it may be that you need to rework your goal statement, or there is specific feedback on the things that you can do to improve your interview skills and how you were able to articulate your previous experiences and your learning goals. It's important for you to be aware that as a cohort, you are not all in the same spot in your skill development. It's possible that your current skill set isn't a match for the work and training provided at a specific field site. In these cases, you may need to reflect on your goals and consider different field site options to develop your skills. For example, you may want to do psychotherapy, and that may be your long-range goal. But where you're at in your skill development, it requires you to first enhance your skills at engagement, assessment, and critical thinking before you're ready for psychotherapy cases. Remember to be self-reflective and patient with all that you have to learn. Whatever the reason for not getting the placement, please reach out to us so we can help you learn from the interview and move forward in your development of social work skills and competencies. Step number 4, preparing to start field. This is the exciting part. As soon as you accept an offer from a field agency, we would all say congratulations, you got a field placement. Some field sites require additional items for you to complete before you start field, so make sure to check in with your field instructor at the field site before the field placement starts to see what's needed. It's not uncommon that health screenings, especially for healthcare field placements, drug testing, or even background checks are required, especially if you are placed in field sites working with vulnerable populations such as children or older adults or people with mental illness. You should understand that our University of Michigan School of Social Work has a long-standing commitment to assist individuals with criminal conviction histories so they can pursue their MSW. We understand that some of you may have had contact with the legal system in your past, and that actually may have been the inspiration that has led you to the field of social work. However, the state of Michigan has set forth exclusionary criteria for criminal conviction histories of both felonies and misdemeanors for professionals working in certain settings and with specific populations. This includes workers in hospital settings, adult foster care, work involving children, and psychiatric settings, which balance the protection of the individuals who are part of a vulnerable population with the ability of individuals with lived experiences to be able to add to the workforce. If you do have this type of history, we would encourage you to inform our office before you start interviewing for field placements so that we can find a field placement that works for you. Even if you had something expunged from your record, sometimes background checks still show this history. So please let our office know so we can assist you in navigating your field placement selections. Please know that we will not share this information with the field placement sites without your permission. The incoming field student website has a whole section on preparing to start field, which includes topics you may want to discuss with your field placement before your first day, and also information on how to thoughtfully and appropriately enter the community and organization in which your field site is housed. So that's really it for today. Hopefully we've given you a lot of information that will be useful to you as you begin to apply for field and think about the application process. We want you to know that if at all you have questions, hopefully you were able to get those answered during the chat, but also able to reach out to our folks as well. So there are just a couple of last few notes that I want to do before I turn things over to Stacy Peterson and Beth Sherman to talk about the school social work certification. A few field sites may request a letter of recommendation around the time of the interview. If you waived your access to the letters of recommendations you submitted as part of your application to the MSW program, then you can't reuse those letters for this. All field sites must follow the Americans with Disabilities Act and provide reasonable accommodations if you have a disability. Two things to note about this, however. It's helpful to disclose to our office if you have a disability that requires accommodation so that we can consider that when we help to place you. For instance, some field sites are in buildings that were built before ADA became law, so they may not have elevators or ramps that could pose a problem if you have a disability that affects your mobility. We will share this information. We will not, share this information with field sites without your permission. Students with disabilities are encouraged to contact the Services for Students with Disabilities office so they can assist you in documenting and requesting any necessary accommodations you need either during your coursework or in field. If there's a chance you'll practice social work outside of Michigan after you graduate, know that each state has different licensing laws and requirements. This program ensures that your field experience qualifies under the guidelines for Michigan licensure. To research what's required in your state or states you're considering, you can go to the Association of Social Work Boards website, which is the social work certifying body, and you can also contact our Office for Career Services. Again, Michelle Woods is in our chat right now, and they are extraordinarily helpful in understanding about licensure laws throughout states in the United States. And that office website is ssw-cso@umich.edu. It's listed on the slide here. We've also created a resource page specifically for international students on the incoming field website, so please make sure you take a look. If you have an undocumented status currently, connect with the Office of Student Services for information regarding the field placement process, and they'll help you navigate that as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk today. What I'd like you to be able to know is here's the pictures of all of our field faculty. As I mentioned, we have 7 assigned to our office. Daisha Price, who you'll also see listed, is the field faculty and clinical faculty that will work with all of you that are part of the Detroit Clinical Scholars Program and the HRSA Scholars Program. So Daisha is included in her photo here. I'd like to invite you, though, to email our office and schedule a time to talk with one of our field faculty members before you start the field placement process. This would be about a 15-minute phone call to welcome you to the program, talk about your interests, and give you an opportunity to get any outstanding field questions you have answered. I'd highly recommend anyone who's scheduled, especially to begin field in the fall, or anyone who has interest in a global, national, or local placement that starts out of sequence, to go ahead and get this scheduled. If you're going to apply in the fall to start field in the winter, you can still schedule a call now, or you can wait until your application deadline gets a little bit closer. But we would welcome all calls and highly encourage you to participate in these activities. To schedule this call, reach out to our office through our email, and our administrative coordinator, Allison Osborne, will work with you to schedule a time. Okay, we've come to the end of the field education webinar. Stacy Peterson and Beth Sherman will be on in a minute to talk to you about school social work, so please hang on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are going to start our presentation to talk to you a little bit about school social work. I am Stacy Peterson. I work in the Office of Field Instructions, and I do all the, not all, but I work with the team to place you in school settings. I'm also here with my colleague, Beth Sherman, and she's going to say a few good words.
Oh, hi, it's Beth Sherman, and I coordinate the School Social Worker Specialization Program. So thanks for listening in, and we'll give you a bit of the lay of the land of what needs to happen in terms of pursuing the School Social Worker Specialization here in our program.
So to get started, we want to talk a little bit about what happens with school social workers and, oops, I'm too quick on the button there. Our goal is to give you information about the school social worker specialization and help you understand the placement process. So we do have a specific school social work it's a social work and school settings page that you can link to when this PowerPoint becomes live, but this is for you. So what we want to start with is give you a little bit of information about I'm quick on the button. I'm sorry about that. A little bit about an overview, or what are the roles and qualities that people look for when they're considering accepting you as a school social work intern. We also want to share with you the requirements for the school social work specialization. We talk a little bit about information you know to get started. I will be telling you about what is the placement process for school social work placements. A school-based placement has some different guidelines because our field placements run during the time that a school is in session, so that's September to June. It's work with vulnerable populations, and they have a little bit of more information that they might ask you for. And then we're just going to give you some additional information that you might be helpful to you and our contact information.
It's Beth Sherman here, and I'll start by, okay, so just in general, if you're thinking about taking the school social worker specialization and specifically looking for a placement in schools, the kinds of things that you'll be doing are a lot of general social work activities and roles, such as engaging students, their families, the school population. You'll be assessing, again, students, families in the whole school building. You'll be working in multi-tiered interventions for the whole student body, some specific one-on-one student interventions, small group interventions, and then also specifically engaging in terms of special ed law with some procedures and protocols related to special education protocols, and then also just generally advocating for kids, for students, for their right to education, and looking at how to improve the school climate and culture overall to make school a productive and affirming place for all students. In terms of school social work, it's important as a school social worker to be fairly organized, but also flexible, because a lot of what you think that you might want to do for the day may get interrupted or changed based on the shifting needs of the building, such as crisis or fire drills or any other kinds of thing, mainly crisis and needs that sort of unexpectedly arise. So you have to be pretty detail oriented and able to work in a fast-paced environment, and also have a combination of interpersonal skills with both kids, their families, and teachers. So you have to like working with students and youth, but you also have to like working with adults on student behalf. Okay, so just in terms of the school social worker specialization, so we do have one here at the University of Michigan, and in order to earn that specialization, you'll need to take 3 classes: Social Work 612, which is an assessment class, Social Work 629, which is a school social worker interventions class, and then Social Work 642, which is a policy and services class. So you take those 3 classes, and then you need to have 500 field hours of direct service with children, youth, and families. Those field hours are done as part of your field program, so it's not additional. 500 hours is just as part of your field placement. At least 500 hours have to be direct practice with children, youth, and families. And the thing to mention about that, and I'll get into it a little bit later, is that for Michigan, so in order to graduate with the school social worker specialization, the hours do not have to be done in a school setting. They just have to be done direct practice with children and youth. However, in some other states, there is a requirement that in order to practice as a school social worker, your internship has to be done in a school setting. The states that immediately come to mind for that are Illinois and California. So I'll talk about it in a minute, but when you're planning to come here, but if you know for a fact that you're not going to practice in Michigan and you think you might practice in another state, it's always a good idea to look into what those state requirements are to get approved to practice as a school social worker. So in terms of Michigan, there is an approval process once you do the coursework and the hours. Graduate with it as part of your MSW, and then there's a recommendation. We issue a recommendation for you to be approved to practice as a school social worker in Michigan, and the Michigan Department of Education qualifies you to do that practice. So you'll have the full preparation for Michigan. And again, I just mentioned it, but I'll say it again. Other states have their own requirements because education is a state's rights issue, so each state has its own requirements. So if you're interested, you can go to the state's Department of Education and check out what the requirements are for school social workers in that state.
Okay, this is Stacy clicking back in with you. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what is the placement process for being placed in a school. So one of the things that you see my beautiful graphic here, I just want you to see that. I just love the graphic. There's a different timeline. So for example, school placements run from September to June. That's when the public school year is. One of the questions we get a lot is, can I be 16-month and placed in a school? The typical answer is no, because as a 16-month student, the bulk of your field hours are done over the summer, and schools are closed over the summer. Even schools with summer school programming only go a couple of weeks into the summer, so they won't give you enough time to get those 456 hours that you'd be working. Many schools in Michigan, all programs working with vulnerable populations will require a criminal background check. So if you're looking at a school, you want to talk about that at the interview. How do they do the background check? Most places will have you do it through their source. People ask, oh, can I bring a background check from another state, or can I do a background check if I just did one? That will be determined at the individual setting. It's not something that we as a field office can say, oh, you did one, in one county and you can do it another one here. The agency has to determine how that's managed. Oftentimes in a school placement, they will ask you for references. So these cannot be the references that you use to apply to graduate school. Those references are for a specific purpose that was admission into the graduate program. So one of the things that you can do is sort of be prepared if you're interested in a school-based placement to have a couple of references with you. I always say if you have a professional reference and a reference from an internship or a job, and then one from maybe an academic reference, those are two great places you can start for references. So a professional and an academic one, have those people prepared. If you are asking someone for a reference, and you probably already know this, you want to give them a heads up so they're not surprised when they hear again that you need a reference. The other thing you'll see here is we talk about immunizations. Because schools are, I jokingly refer to them as cesspools. All the germs are there. Many schools will ask you to get certain immunizations. Often we see the influenza, the Hep B background series are two of the things that I often hear. And so Hep B, and you will definitely have to get a TB test. You can bring those things with you if they're current, I think within a year. Again, each agency has their own guidelines and requirements based on their accreditation standards, and so you want to ask about that during the interview. We also have some resources here on campus. Our student health services can help you with your immunizations. Because field goes from September to June, if you are a second year 20-month student who has a placement from September to April, there's a question of you leaving in April. The answer is no, you stay until June. It's really important that you see what a school year looks like if you're planning to work in a school. So we will work with you to have a special registration and insurance coverage guidelines while you're finishing your field placement, and we'll help you graduate on time. So you can still be an April graduate with an April degree conferment and stay in your placement through June. That might look different on your transcript for a little bit, but at the end, everything will work out. If you're an advanced standing student and you're doing a field placement, you will typically need to go to field 3 days a week because you are only doing, you're doing less hours in this program because you've already completed a number of hours at your first setting. And so again, you're going to register a little different, and your individual field faculty is going to help you work that out. We're going to make sure you meet the requirements and graduate on time. But there's just a little bit of a different grading policy just around the hours and the registration, but we're here to help you. that's what we want to tell you about being placed in a school placement and moving on to our school social worker specialization. So just a few quick notes. What's next is what we want you to know. I like to remind people that it's really important that you're flexible if you're placed in a school. Sometimes people will say, well, I want to have a daily agenda and I want things to go exactly how my agenda says. And school, Beth shared, it's a rapid paced environment. It's very, you have to be really flexible, and we're excited to embark on this journey with you. If you have other questions or you need more information, both Beth and myself are available. And hold on one second.
I would just like to mention that the school social worker specialization is a very popular choice here, and so even though there are some additional requirements, and there are some things to be aware of and you're learning about during this webinar, I just want to reiterate that a lot of people select this either because they want to be school social workers, they know that right after they get out of their MSW program, that's what they want in terms of their career, or that they would like to have it as sort of a plan B and have gotten that training while they were at Michigan. The reason I'm mentioning this is because I get calls, almost every day from people who didn't do the school social worker specialization and then they're trying to pick it up later in their career. And it's possible, but it is a relatively easy thing to get done while you're here. And then to reiterate that you don't have to be placed in a school in order to get the school social worker specialization. So thanks and congratulations on being admitted, and we'll look forward to seeing you all in the fall. And as Stacy said, just feel free to contact either one of us if you have additional questions. There are a couple of resources that we have posted about school social worker specialization, the webpage, and the Michigan approval process. There's a link to a School Social Worker of America professional organization and the Michigan Association of School Social Workers. I think that actually I need to amend that. That's the next one is a dead link. That's on me. And then there are also some, if you want to know about other states, there is a website that gives some overview of loosely about what other states require, so you can start there if you're doing research in other states. And just feel free to reach out if you need anything. Thanks for your time and attention. See you in the fall. Bye.
Hey, this is Stacy again. Just wanted to say we're really happy to have you joining us. We look forward to talking to you about school social work or you joining our field office program. We're really excited and looking forward to having you. And again, welcome to Michigan. Go Blue.